Welcome to this next episode where I introduce the subject of options. Before I get to options, a few terminology phrases which I think would be useful for anybody. If you are bullish on something, let's say a commodity, a stock, or an index, you expect that particular commodity, stock, or index to go up. If you are bearish on a commodity, stock, or index, you expect that commodity, stock, or index to go down. Now, if you are bullish, you can take what's considered a long position in that particular asset. A long position is something that enables you to profit in case your bullish view is realized. In the same way, if you are bearish about something, you can take what is called a short position in that asset, and a short position enables you to make profits if your bearish view holds correct. Right? So having put those terms out of the way, let's introduce the subject of options. You remember that earlier I talked about futures, and I talked about the fact that a future contract is a blinding obligation. You had to buy a particular asset. If you held a future contract which is bought, you had to sell a particular asset if you had sold the future and carried that position through to expiry. There was no choice associated with it. If you carried that future position, either bought or sold, to expiry, you had to either buy the underlying asset or sell the underlying asset at expiry. So not much flexibility there, and it's a very simple instrument. But what if you actually had a choice in the matter? What if you could own a particular instrument that gave you the option or the choice to buy on expiry? What if you held an instrument that gave you a choice of whether to sell or not sell at the time of expiry of the underlying asset? Now, this is something which is called an option contract. And just like I just gave two examples, an option to buy and an option to sell, there are two types of options linked to those two choices. If you want the ability or the choice to buy or not buy an underlying asset, you need to buy what is called a call option, C-A-L-L, call. If you want a choice whether to sell or not sell a particular asset on expiry of that contract, you need to buy what is called a put option, P-U-T. So these are technical terms. They are used universally all over the world. There are particular reasons why they are called call and put options, but I don't want to get into more details about it. That's available anywhere in the internet. You can always Google and find out. There are two types of contracts in options. One which is called the American option, and the other which is called the European option. Okay, let me put it this way. I don't want to talk about an American option because American options are not bought and sold in India. The only types of options that are bought and sold in India are called European options, and therefore for a single shorthand for the call option or the put option, the commonly used abbreviations for them are CE and PE respectively. The CE stands for call European and the PE stands for put European. Okay, but 90% of the people dealing with these options in the market really have no idea what these letters CE and PE stand for. But it's kind of good that you realize what those particular terms mean, right? So how does this work, right? Okay, let's put it this way. You want to have an option to buy. So let's say that you want to have an opportunity to buy, let us say, an Infosys share, right? And you want to have an opportunity to buy it at the end of December if certain conditions are realized. Now think of it this way. To buy something, you must have somebody sell that something to you. right? How do you ensure that whatever you are buying, that option, that choice, there will be somebody at the other end of that contract who will be ready to honor that contract to you on expiry? If at the end of December, when the contract expires, you say, okay, I've decided to buy this many shares of Infosys, sell it to me. Who is going to sell it to you? So the answer here is very simple. Every option bought requires an option to be sold at the other end, right? Please note that the option to buy rests only with the buyer of the option. If you sell an option, then you have no choice in the matter. If the buyer of the option wants to have that particular transaction done, you have no option but to sell. Because otherwise there's no option at all. If the seller also says, hey, I've changed my mind, then what option is available to the buyer? So let's be clear about something. A buyer of an option can have an option to buy or not. The seller of an option has no option. Okay, he or she has to has to either buy or to sell, depending on which side they're on. And let me explain a little bit about that as we go forward. Nothing better than to give an actual concrete example. So let's take Infosys. Right? Infosys is trading approximately 1560 at present today, 1560 a share. Let's assume that you want to buy a 1600 call option, right? Now that number 1600, we refer to it as a strike price. That means that is the price at which a contract is struck. So it's called a strike price. The value of a call option at 1600 strike price today is around 21 rupees. Remember that number, 21 rupees. Now what does this mean? Let's say I buy a 1600 call option, 1600 CE. Remember, I've already explained what those letters CE refer to. 1600 CE I purchase at the price of 21 rupees. This means I will not make a single rupee of money if the Infosys share at the end of December goes at any price less than 1621. Why? Because if the price is at 1621 or below, what have I gained? I have paid 21 rupees to buy an option to buy it at 1600, right? And remember, if the price is less than 1621, it would be foolish for me to have bought the contract in the first place. I could have just waited till December and bought as many Infosys shares as I wanted. If on the other hand, the Infosys share is, let's say, 1651, now we've got talking about some serious profit. Because remember, I had the option to buy at the strike price of 1600. On expiry, that option will be worth 51 rupees to me. Why is it worth 51? Because the Infosys share has finished at 1651 at the end of the month. Which means that if I have the right to buy that share at 1600, that right is worth 51 rupees. And I paid only 21 rupees for that right, and therefore I make a profit of 30 rupees. Now, that's at expiry, when it's relatively easy to judge because that's the end of the contract and we know for sure what the Infosys price is. Now the question is, what happens in between, right? Let's say the Infosys share is now at 1560. The price of Infosys after a week, somewhere let's say around the 8th or 7th of December, is 20 bucks up. From 1560 it's 1580. What is the price of that 1600 CE contract? Now that's not an answer that you can readily give very easily on a video. There's no easy way to calculate it. Suffice to say that it depends on a series of intricate variables and a series of partial differential equations that's extremely difficult for somebody to solve on pen and paper. But instead of doing that process of solving on pen and paper, there are various models which try to make sense of that pricing of an option and reduce it down to terms that people can understand. When we're doing that, there are five very important variables that get into an option price. There are by the way, very many more, but these five account for more than 99.5% of the price of an option, and therefore for all intents and purposes it's enough if we look at these five. Right? So these five are referred to as the option Greeks, and they are Greeks because they're called by various Greek letters. And we'll be spending an entire set of videos, or maybe just a single video or a few minutes on option Greeks. That's on the next slide. So this is going to give you some understanding of how a value of an option will change and change shape as we move from the time you buy to the time of expiry. There's another factor to keep in mind here as we look at the entire gamut of options. One way to think of an option is to think of it as an insurance contract. We all buy insurance in various forms, right? We buy insurance for our vehicles, we buy insurance for our houses, some of us buy insurance for our lives, right? What is an insurance contract? An insurance contract is like an option. All we do is to say, I'm going to pay you some small amount. If this happens, then you pay me this very large amount. Think of it from the other side. What does an insurance company do? The insurance company sits on the other side of the contract. The insurance company says to you, I'm going to collect money for your car insurance or your two-wheeler insurance from you and lakhs and crores of other people in the country. And I'm going to take this common pool of people, and even if from time to time somebody has an accident and I have to pay out, I'm still collecting premium from so many people. Then at the end of the day, I'm going to be profitable, right? Have you heard of any insurance company making a loss? I haven't. So this is the basic philosophical difference between buying an option and selling an option. To buy an option and to keep buying options and to make money is extremely difficult, and I'll explain why in subsequent episodes. If you are selling options and if you are doing proper study and proper risk management and you manage properly, there's actually no reason why really you should be making losses. So this is something that I'll get into. But in this particular episode, I've at least introduced the concept of what an option is. I've talked about what a call option is and a put option is. I've talked about what a strike price is, and I've kind of laid the ground for explaining what factors could go into determining an option price between the time you buy and the time of expiry of the contract. Anyway, thank you for watching. The next episode and the next set of videos will be coming up very soon. We will move very fast towards the hardcore of the subject of how to actually start selling options and making money. Thank you for watching.